Hello, rodeo fans, and welcome to episode 9 of the short round, the official podcast of the Canadian Professional Rodeo Association. I'm your host, Wacey Anderson, and I'm once again stoked to be joined by my guest co host, Clay Creasy. Welcome back, dude. Thanks for doing this. How's things going?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been really fun here, and glad to continue to be a part of this.
I got a lot of good feedback from the last show having you on, so I figured we need to bring you back again. So I'm stoked to kind of shoot it with you for a while here. So we kind of have to start on a bit of a sad note, but Wes definitely passed away recently, and you had some stuff written down how you want to kind of pay tribute to Wes and his legacy.
Yeah, so fortunately, being from the East Central area here, I've gotten to know Wes and the family a lot over the years, and it's a sad moment, but they did a great job of remembering the man that he was, the true family man, the core kind of builder of a lot of timed event competitors' careers with his indoor arena that really kind of set a lot of people up over the years, and just truly at the center of a ton of rodeo families from out that way. It was kind of interesting at the funeral. I knew of a few of them, knowing that his wife Linda and Stan Weatherly's wife Elda were sisters, but that the connection to the Ginthners and the Butterwicks and the Lays and all of those, and just a lot of rodeo history stems from that little area. So it was a really very well attended event, and you got to get a general sense of how much he meant to a lot of people. So
I didn't really know Wes that well, and I was like caught by surprise to see the kind of the support and the amount of people like speaking to his legacy that you saw on social media, like some of the biggest names in rodeo today and from yesterday, where I had a story about West or some type of connection to him and what he brought to the table. So he's leaving a lasting legacy, and he won't be forgotten, the impact that he left on the rodeo community.
yeah, for sure. I mean, Blaine Peterson, world champion steer wrestler, he got his start there. I mean, his sons, BJ and Darren, both. Darren's a Canadian champion tie down roper, and BJ is a Canadian champion steer wrestler. They ran as many steers and calves through there as anything in that dark tunnel, they called it, and it 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 made a lot of competitors the tough people they are. And I mean, they spoke to the horseman he was, and just the straight to it advice giver that he always was for everyone, from anybody that stopped in to ride to his kids and grandkids. And yeah, he will definitely be missed.
No, without those types of people, we don't have the rodeo or know the rodeo we do today. And it's they're important people, and it's important to remember their legacy and what they've given back. And we're definitely thinking of Wes and his family and everybody who he touched through his lifetime, and we appreciate everything that he's done for rodeo in Canada. Well, that's gonna move us on to kind of some of the action that's been happening south of the border, Clay. We kind of had the proverbial end the Texas swing. I know there's still Austin and a few other rodeos wrapping up. Kind of the big round of rodeos in Texas wrapped up with Houston over the weekend, and a lot of Canadian contestants had some good success, but no more than the four-legged athlete Agent Links from the Calgary Stampede. Let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah, so again, one of those Texas swing big ones doesn't necessarily count in the world standings, but over the past week or so, Agent Links was rode for the title in both the American with Cade Saunier and Rodeo Houston with Leighton Berry there. So a lot of money into some pockets on that sorrel mare that comes out of the great black mare Lynx Mountain, and of course sired by the incredible graded coconut that we just lost there. So
She's an electric little horse, man. I know I watched Leighton's ride a few times after it got posted on social media there, and man, like between him taking the ride to her and then her like just being snappy and electric, like I said, that was something else. Like it was worth every single one of those 91 and a few points.
for sure, she's really and I when I was talking to Tyler Kraft from the Stampede, I said, "Geez, she's a mirror image of her mom. Her mom went out from the other way and always circled to the right. She comes out from that left delivery and circles to the left, but." she just, yeah, she gets in the air, those feet hang like that. And I always think back, I remember when the NFR was in Dallas, and the very first horse out in the bareback ride in the first perf was her with Chad Rutherford, and I was just beside myself because it was just phenomenal, and they only marked it 84 and a half when it very well could have set a new high score record. In my eyes, it was
Mhm.
just, she fired out of there so well. And yeah, no, she's definitely one they want to have, because she'll take you right to the
Yeah.
top.
It's interesting, like thinking about that, and even the NFR in Texas and some of those bigger arenas can kind of take away from a really good ride. I know when you see like we look in the Thomas and Mack and at the CFR and these smaller venues, it just has to like a bit more of like a feeling, or like just the electricity is kind of a bit more apparent when you see a big ride in one of these the smaller venues versus the big ones. Hey, maybe that's why we only didn't see the arena record get broken.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, sometimes a judge just,
Yeah, that's true
I
too.
mean, I think it would have caught everybody off guard to see something like that right
Mhm.
from the get-go. But yeah, it's tough to say.
Like I said, some of our two-legged athletes did very well down in Houston too. Clint Lay's one of those guys who he walked out of the arena with over 13,000 winnings. And I mean, he didn't even make the 4 rounds. So like that's a huge week in Houston for Clay, and he's back and he's healthy and he's making a charge to get back to the NFR this year.
Yeah, for sure. I got a chance to talk to him when we had our little NFR party in Provost here in December, and I'd asked him if he was planning on going down south some more this year, and he definitely said it. And he's been riding phenomenally all winter.
Mm.
He hasn't quite. I mean, well, here he definitely jumped out, and I mean, come out of his pool at the top, and then had to go through the wild card, but won his wild card spot into the final Sunday, and just didn't quite have enough horse. And but I look to him to just keep on picking away, and now he's just outside the top 15, and I think we'll see him keep working and getting in there.
Clint's a guy you can tell when he's like ultra healthy and feeling good. Like he really is aggressive when he's riding and really stands out that way to me. You even saw it kind of starting up at the CFR last year. Like he rode with a vengeance and was looking like vintage Clint Lay at that point. And I think we're seeing that continue on in 2024.
Yeah, I thought he had a really incredible CFR there, and I mean he's a big guy. He really gets a hold of the front end of those horses. Really can pick one of them up, and kind of a throwback to kind of Bobby Moat style, where you
Hmm.
really get a hold of that front end, and help those horses out, and then also helps you when you get one of them bigger ones that you
Yeah.
need to be able to hold on to.
For sure. And even a guy like Clint, when he's like you don't really see him show any type of emotion or really get too high or get too low. And again, at the CFR, we saw him really he'd celebrate after a big ride. And I think that just kind of another testament to being healthy and how much of a factor that plays for a guy like Clint.
Yeah, Clint's a pretty cool customer. He's not one to jump and shout too much, but yeah, you could tell that the CFR, he's riding well, and when you're feeling good, there's no better feeling in the world.
Yeah. So a couple other notable, I guess, placings or finishings by some of our Canadian contestants. It was Zeke Thurston. He didn't make the championship round, but he still walked out with nearly $10,000, I think, from his time in Houston. And then we had another strong showing at one of the biggest rodeos in the PRCA for our Canadian contingent.
For sure. Yeah, no, there's a couple of the breakaway ropers there, Shelby and Kendall, both left with pretty good money. That I was looking at that standings in the breakaway, and it's pretty wide open. So
Hmm.
they'll definitely be within striking distance, and probably a little happier where they're at now coming into the spring.
Yeah, and I feel like Shelby and Kendall are kind of similar in the fact of like getting on a roll, like getting some momentum going will really help them. Kind of, we'll see their names popping up more near the top of the leaderboard at some of these places. I think Kendall was leading the second round of Austin before she left back
Mhm.
to Houston, and so I wouldn't be surprised to see them make up some more ground as they move to the spring. It's officially the first day of spring here, and so we'll keep an eye on those names as we move through the rest of the season. Okay, Clay, before we move to the interview, I want to go into some more stuff on American in Houston with them bringing in the video replay. We didn't get to that last time we talked, but A really cool thing. And it seems it's something that where Pro Rodeo kind of led the charge. Rodeo Canada, sorry, led the charge on that last year. We saw the WCRA implement a type of video replay, video challenge type thing, and now we're seeing some of these bigger rodeos and bigger events bring it in. I think it's almost. I feel like if you don't have it at that level, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice and not kind of giving the contestants and everybody the best chance to win.
For sure. And again, it's one of those things that we've seen. It's kind of a trickle down effect again from all the exposure that the sport is getting through the Cowboy Channel.
Mm-hmm.
These types of things, it's not like they've just happened recently in the arena where people feel an injustice has occurred, but the publicity that arises from an incident like with Bo Cooper at
For
Houston
sure.
last year,
Mm-hmm.
and even the team ropers with the crossfires and those types of bang bang situations that without a chance to look it over, and the markouts. I mean, those things, again, a crossfire and a markout are so subjective that having a chance to relive it can be to somebody's benefit. And yeah, the WCRA, I think it kind of started at first,
Mm-hmm.
definitely a tremendous step by the CPRA to implement it last year at their bigger events. And again, I think Houston didn't want any backlash so much like they had last year. Nobody wants to feel like they didn't earn something,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you want to feel like you didn't have something taken away either. So I think it's definitely a tremendous step forward, and I think hopefully the PRCA will begin to move towards doing something similar to that with
Mm-hmm.
the CPRA doing it. And again, a lot of the time those short rounds for sure, if they
Yeah.
start there.
One thing, and just a matter of getting it right, like I feel like even when it comes to like marking rides or whatever, like I know there's a lot of times when we feel like a person's a little bit higher than they should be or not quite enough. And I think for me, it's always as long as they're getting the order of things right or getting the right thing is happening. I think that's the best we can do for people. And having the access to this video replay helps ensure that happens more often than not, I would say.
For sure. And I mean, you look at other sports, and I guess a big part of it is knowing that you've got cameras in the right spots so
Hmm.
that you
Hmm.
can review it. I know that was one of the things in looking at some of the info when the WCRA was kind of implementing it last year. Who decides it? And again, what are your protocols when you're deciding, okay, what do I need to see in order to definitively overturn this? Because I know already a review in Houston that people are still questioning. And even at the CFR last year, people, I know Colby Wanchuk's one markout that he was called for there last year. It was splitting hairs, right? So
Hmm.
even with all the
Hmm.
time and
Yeah.
slow mo and pausing in the world, you can still have three guys sitting on the chutes with three different ideas of
Yeah,
what it
it's
is.
true.
So
Well, and it's one of those things too, and like all this stuff happens so fast, and anybody who's watched a rodeo or whatever, been close to it, it's the judge is going to make a split-second decision on their own right to make that call. So just having the ability to kind of look things over, get things right, and like you say, maybe it comes down to splitting hairs, but at least there's an option for a contestant to kind of say, "Hey, I don't think I had a fair shot at it." And I think it's gonna be a big change, and we're gonna see a lot of good come from something like this.
absolutely. I just adds to the professionalism of the sport for us, and I'm excited to see where that goes from here.
Well, I think it's no better time than now to throw it to our interview this week, and I'm stoked that we have Canadian bareback riding legend Davey Shields Jr. joining us for episode 9 of the short round here, and we will throw it to that now. We'll be right back right after this. All right, welcome back to the Short Round Podcast, and I'm super fired up to welcome this week's guest. He is a living legend and was one of the dominant forces in the bareback riding in the late 90s and early 2000s. He's a 3-time Canadian champion, a 4-time Calgary Stampede champion, and he has qualified for the Wrangler NFR 4 times. And pretty much if you name it, he's done it. Welcome to the Short Round Podcast, Davey Shields Jr. How is it, man?
Thanks for having me. It'd be cool to be on it.
So just before we start recording here, I kind of asked where you're at these days, and you said you're kind of splitting your time between Texas and Colorado Springs, and yeah, what let people know what you're up to these days.
Well, I guess I'm just being Mr. Dad, right? I'm
Yeah.
following my kid around playing hockey, and we came down to Dallas when COVID started just to get out of everything was shut down in Canada, and
Mhm.
we're just sitting around, and kids weren't going to school, and there was no hockey, and so we just, my wife's from Oklahoma, and so my kids got both passports, so they can freely do whatever they want to do either side of the border. So we just kind of just packed her up. My wife says, well, maybe we should go down south. And I said, we're either going to go to Phoenix or we're going to go to Dallas, one of the two, because those are the two places I wanted to go.
Yeah.
So we came to Dallas. They got a fantastic hockey program here, and we
Nice.
played for a couple years, and then eventually he plays AAA hockey. So we went up to Colorado Springs, and he was on a team up there for this year. So yeah, we're just falling around, and the kids are, you get this hockey down here is way different than Canadian hockey.
Hmm.
It's like his Colorado team. I think there might be 5 kids from actually Colorado on the team. They're
Wow. Yeah.
all around the US. So like we go to Michigan, Minnesota, all over the Northeast all
Wow.
winter long, and it's just a different atmosphere of hockey that instead
Hmm.
of same old eight,
You're playing all
six,
your
eight,
games in the
six,
city or whatever.
yeah, you have 6 to 8 teams. It's you get to see you're from one weekend you're in Providence, Rhode Island, and the next weekend you're in Anaheim, California.
Hmm.
It's kind of like rodeo in a
Yeah,
little,
exactly. I was just thinking that.
kind of just going around and hitting different places. But we really enjoyed it, and not sure where he's going to play next year, but he's got a
Hmm.
couple tryouts up in Alberta. So some
Nice.
AJ camp. So we're gonna, venture up there, have a look at that. But he's still young yet, and he's a goalie. So
Oh man.
we've got another battle in ourselves right there, being a goalie.
Yeah, no doubt, especially with how much gear costs these days. I play goal a little bit too, and even just to try to replace gear nowadays, like if you want any quality stuff, it's like 4 or 5 grand for a full set of stuff.
Oh yeah, and everything's got to be custom
Right?
nowadays.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
so.
Those brands got it figured out, man. They got
Oh,
customize everything.
yeah, you want
Uh,
your color on it. It's cost you some money.
it's pretty cool. And like, so I listened to some of the boys in Calgary, they have like a Flames podcast, and Rhett Warner's on it. His kid plays in Buffalo, and he
Yeah.
talks about how different it is in Canada or in the US versus Canada, how it's yeah, you kind of have one team that draws everybody in that area to it. So you do spend a lot more time traveling and stuff. Do you find that helps the competition a bit more? It's a bit more competitive than say a lot of times in Canada, or how would you compare it that way?
Well, you know what? I've been saying this to my friends up there in Alberta and stuff. I says this US hockey's it's taken off. You better look out.
Hmm.
It's it's getting so big, and it's everywhere now. Like it's in
Hmm.
hot places, and you know the northeast of hockey in the United States, it's a beast up there.
Oh, I
There's
believe it.
so many good teams, and our team, we do pretty good in the Midwest in the US here, and we do good in the western part. We do really good, but you go up to that Michigan and New York and that area, the caliber of hockey is pretty insane. So, and they're recruiting kids to play on, midget teams or whatever all over.
Yeah.
Like Shattuck St. Mary's in Minnesota, it's unbelievable, like the hockey caliber.
That's awesome. So aside from being a hockey dad, what's keeping you busy these days? You got some business going, or you golfing, or what are you up to?
Yeah. Well, that's about it. I actually got I got tea time here at 1:30. So well, playing lots of golf, yeah. Helped the wife a little bit with her business, but other than that, I'm just Mr. Dad. It's just,
That's awesome.
but he's 16 now and he drives himself, so I don't have to go to practice anymore, which
Perfect.
I enjoyed that. I think I might have went and watched practice 2 times the whole year this year. So the driver's license thing has been awesome. So
Yeah, more time on the driving range for you,
yeah, yeah.
eh?
Playing lots of golf.
Yeah.
I think I got in 136 rounds in last year.
Wow.
So
That's awesome, man. Good
it's
for
been
you.
okay. It's been
Yeah,
okay.
not bad at all. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to take a kind of a walk down memory lane for you and get into kind of the meat of your career and some of the highlights and that kind of stuff. So let's jump into that. And I kind of want to ask you, one of the first things I want to talk to you is, you were the first Canadian bareback rider to break that $1 million threshold in career earnings. And it was at a time where rodeos pay a heck of a lot less than they do now. So like, what do you think led to your success at that time? And how were you able to keep on winning and amass that? Because you look at it now where you see, it seems like $1 million is kind of it's not as significant at this day and age for a career.
Right. I watch it a little bit of, I've been out of the loop so much with rodeo lately that,
Mhm.
I think I've been to 2 rodeos in 12 years. So Mike Solberg come down to Fort Worth and I just happened to go with him one day. That was a couple of years ago. And, I was like, went into the new locker room in Fort Worth there at Dickies. And I was like, we used to get ready in the hallway at the old thing there, and now they got big dressing rooms and showers, and oh, it's beautiful. But that it's changed a bunch, and for me, it was just setting goals right from the start and wanting to do everything. Even when I was a boy steer rider, it was like I want to be a Canadian champion. So you set that goal, and then it worked up from steer riding to high school to college to the professional ranks. So that's just where I kept going with it, just making a goal to win something.
Well, and you kind of hit the ground running too. Like you won rookie of the year in the PRCA. You just missed the NFR that year too, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. But you won Canada and you won the Stampede like not long after that either. So you kind of had a lot of success early in your career. So
yeah.
what things were you doing to kind of set yourself apart like from everybody else at that time?
Well, I don't know. It was just, I had a good bunch of guys, like, especially when I was like 18, 19, when I
Mhm.
first started going, I kind of jumped in the truck with Bill Boyd and Daryl Cholak and Sean Vant, and a bunch of those guys. And I mean, they'd all been down the road a lot. So kind of my dad was with us for a little bit. I got the rodeo in the US with my dad and we rode the same event.
So cool.
That was kind of wild, right? And we just went around and those guys knew everything. Bill had a set to where he went off. Oh, I don't know. That first year, I think we entered 100 rodeos or
Wow.
something, or over 100,
Mhm.
110, something. You're used to going to maybe 30 or 40
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
year. And then all of a sudden you jump in the truck and you're going to over 100 rodeos. But just with Bill, like, he'd been to the NFR and he knew what it took to be there. And I don't know, I just had to drive the truck or ride bucking horses. That was about it. So
Soak it all in.
it was a good thing jumping in with Bill because he really knew how to get you down the road.
That's cool. Well, I didn't know you rodeoed with your dad a little bit. That's kind of neat being able to do that. What was it like the first time you beat him? Did you drive up and in a little bit, or did he
Oh
see it
yeah,
coming? What was that like?
there was some places like that had short rounds, Salinas, California, or
Yeah.
something like that. And one time he made the short round and I didn't. And then this next where it was Cheyenne or somewhere, I made it and he didn't. But it was just cool traveling with dad.
Yeah.
And before, like when I was a steer rider or a novice bareback rider or something like that, right? It was dad paid for everything then, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
But
for sure.
but then you had to well, when I rodeo with dad right at the start, it was like we flew to a lot of places because he had his own plane. So
Mhm.
that was, I might have been the only high school kid or high school rodeo that ever flew to high school rodeos, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
We'd
that's
land
crazy.
in Dock Springs and Medicine Hat, right? Hayfield, and
Yeah.
jump out and everybody. But it was cool traveling with dad for a while, and then he eventually had to hang her up. But I broke his leg real bad, and then
Yeah.
kind of the same story I had.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's probably cool for him to kind of pass the torch along to you too, right? Though once you start having your success and he could kind of
Yeah,
like watch you come into your own as one of the top guys, eh?
right. Yeah, yeah. He followed us around for a long time.
So I want to talk about that first time at the NFR for you. Like I said, you just missed in your rookie season, and how motivated were you heading into that next season? Like just knowing that you kind of were just on the cusp of getting into that top 15. What was that like in that season?
Well, once you get a taste of it, especially at the end of the year when you just miss it. I remember we're in San Francisco at the Cow Palace, and it was the last one of the year,
Mhm.
right? Cow Palace used to be the last rodeo. We all sat at the beer gardens, and I mean, we had our numbers, like our winnings written. I still have my back number to where we had everybody's name that was in like from 12th to 17th, right?
Mhm.
And who all won money that weekend. We had it
Crunching the
down.
numbers.
I remember me and Deb Greeno sitting there, and he was on the bubble too at that time. And I still have that back number, which is funny. And we had it down to a thing, and I don't know how much I missed it by, but I remember winning something at the Cow Palace thinking, oh, maybe that got me in there. But
Mhm.
somebody won some money at some other little pohunk rodeo, jumped up. But, it was the old school way of, we didn't have cell phones then either, right? We were
Right.
stopped
Yeah.
having to, enter rodeos on a payphone or doing stuff like that, right?
That's
It was
wild.
yeah. So yeah, there's just cool things like that.
That's wild, hey? Like just being like having to sit there and crunch those numbers. Like now we can just go onto the PRCA website and see where everybody's sitting, and kind of they update it live almost to kind of, it's never in question whether a guy's going to make it or not. But it's just crazy to think of the time where even like not even having maps to try to get places, like all these small little rodeos all over the US, a guy would have no idea where to go, right?
No kidding.
You
Yeah,
get
with
into
the old Rand McNally map was our lifesaver in the truck, right? You just look at a city somewhere and try to find their fairgrounds, and that's usually where the rodeo was at.
yeah, it's a safe bet. So
Yeah.
so that season you made your first NFR. What was this, 97?
7, I think.
Yeah, so
97.
so 97. So what were kind of some of the highlights from that season? Like what kind of pushed you over the top, like I said, to kind of get you to that top 15 and get you into Vegas?
Well, it was, just missing it. I think it made it, you wanted to do it even more, right? So,
Mhm.
it's all about hitting the right rodeos, and which Bill knew. We went to the same, he kind of had a list of, we're going to these rodeos and this is it. But, you just wanted to drive to get there. But that year turned out to be a decent year, and I finally made it. And I had a, I had a terrible finals, but I was hurt the whole time there. And
Right.
I went in there, I tore my groin off at Saskatoon at the All-Star finals. It was like in October or something. And I mean, I tore it right off. Like it snapped in half, and NFR's in 2 months, and it was just
Oh,
like tough. And
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I had a broken tailbone too. And
Oh no.
broken
Damn.
toe. So I couldn't go anywhere without, sitting on a whoopee cushion or something, or like a soft, something soft. So
Yeah.
every night at the NFR, I remember Tandy, I used to have to pull my pants down. He'd freeze my tailbone and freeze my
Oh
ass every night.
Jesus.
And it was like, so it was, and we tried putting so many pads back there, and
Yeah.
you get being at your first NFR is, awesome. Back then it was about, you got the jacket and you got all that stuff, you got all the swag, and sitting on back of the buck and shoots. It was just like, this is awesome here. But it was a battle for me for 10 days. It was,
I've had 10 horses with a busted tailbone. Like that's hard enough to do a weekend or one horse, and doing
I
tens.
know.
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, it's tough there too. And try not to get sick at the NFR for
Oh, I believe it.
14 days, and you get fever, you get whatever they're going on.
Vegas
But
flu creeps in real
yeah,
fast on a guy.
yeah. So
That's
you
wild.
really want to get healthy if when you're gonna get there. It's
So
hard
did
to
you feel?
compete there when you're hurt.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And you see it too. Like I know the past few years, you see a guy like Oren Larson, and he somehow was like either came in hurt or got hurt the first couple of rounds. It can really derail, especially in the bareback riding. There's so much
Yeah,
stress on your body that if you're not fit for competition, it's gonna wear on you over 10 days, because it's just with the horses they throw at you over that time. It's
right.
crazy.
And it was different in my day too. There was actually eliminators there.
Yeah,
Right?
the real
There
eliminators.
was actually horses that were going to buck your ass off and drill you.
Yeah,
Now when I watch it, it's just like everything's a TV pen.
yeah, it's crazy. It's
Looks like to
crazy.
me, anyways.
Well, and that's what's it changes so much over time, right? Like, and you even see like I know more about the bull riding side of things. And you see it too, where they have such a hard time drawing the line between the eliminator and like the rank spinners, because like there really isn't much for eliminators out there because the contractors can't afford to keep them around. But it's crazy. You look back at old videos from when you were going, and it's like night and day when you look at an eliminator pen.
Right. You don't see Kessler's had, I don't know how many 10 horses that were eliminators. Like
Yeah,
you were dreading every time you seen your name beside one of those horses, right? So, it's I don't know, it's changed a bit,
different
and
time.
it sure looks nice to ride nowadays.
It makes a guy almost want to crack out again, eh?
Yeah, I don't know. I got called for that American thing, I don't know, years ago, and they said, "You want to crack out and try it out again? I said, no way.
No,
No way.
thank you. I got a tea time. I got a tea time this afternoon. I'm good.
Yeah.
So one more thing on your first NFR. Did you ever feel any pressure from being the rookie of the year and kind of having more of a spotlight on you that season, or was that something that ever really bothered you?
I didn't really see being a rookie of the year. It's just rodeo. You travel and see the same guys in that dressing room every weekend, right? You're gonna see them somewhere, but
Yeah.
my first year there, I don't have a picture of it, but like I was real young when I was in that dressing room because there
Yeah.
was Marvin Mark Garrett, Kenny Lensgrave, Larry Sandvik, Clint Corey, Wayne Herman. I mean, these guys
Wow.
were legends.
Legends. Yeah.
Legends. And I was in the dressing room with them, and right, and it's just like, kind of cool to sit in that dressing room with
No
all
doubt.
guys that you've been watching your whole life, and yeah, it was just cool. I got to sit beside one side. I had Kenny Lensgrave off me, and I had Wayne Herman beside me. And I was like, I always loved the way Wayne Herman rode, and Kenny Lensgrave was just a super guy. And
That's
you
cool.
as a rookie in there, they razz you a bit in the dressing room, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you got to take it, right?
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure. That's just how it is, right? And was that kind of your like I made it moment, or you're kind of your first like, oh wow, I'm actually like here at the NFR kind of thing.
yeah, you kind of do, right? And
Yeah.
I came in at a high number too, but usually the high numbers go first and whatever. But you, I don't know. I think when they presentate you with your back number and your jacket, it's like, I did it. I finally
Yeah.
made it.
Very cool.
Yeah, you
So
can.
was the boxing match thing still was a thing back then? What they do, I hear rumors about it, and I've talked to Oren about it a little bit. Where they at the end of the 10th round, there's a little bit of boxing match or wrestling between the bareback riders. Was that a thing back when you first made it or when you were
Uh,
going? No,
no, back in my day, it was all about drinking beer in the dressing room.
yeah, not fighting each other,
I'm not
right?
sure if they still do that.
I think they must just fight each other and then go drink beer on
Yeah,
their
it
own,
was
I
like, I
guess.
need a new keg of beer in this dressing room.
Oh
That was
man.
about it.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. Well, we'll get to some more NFR stuff in a little bit here, but I want to get to the Calgary Stampede. So, obviously, a huge part of your career, winning it 4 times. I think that's got to be a record in the bareback riding, if I'm not mistaken.
I
Either
think so.
a record or tied with a record. I know Will Lowe won
I
three
think we,
back to back
yeah,
after you, but
right. I
I
think
think
Will only got three though.
yeah. So I think you're
I think
still.
I'm not sure. I
I
think
was trying to figure it out, but the Stampede doesn't make it easy to find that stuff. But anyways, you freaking four Stampede championships. Obviously, that's a huge thing. Like how talk a bit about how life changing it was for you to win that rodeo 4 times.
yeah, the first time, I don't know if was it 96?
Yeah, 96.
96 would have been the 2021, somewhere around there. So, that 50 grand for back then was a lot of money for
No
us, right?
doubt. Yeah,
Yeah, so it kind of set you up a little bit, and it made rodeoing a lot easier, getting down the road when you got some money in your pocket. But the Stampede's out, it's you can ask anybody. It's one of everybody's favorite rodeos to go
for
to.
sure.
Obviously, there's a ton of good rodeos, but the Stampede, the atmosphere is just, something else. So
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Well, and then for you too, like you grew up in Central Alberta too, so it's basically a hometown rodeo at that point for you, right?
Right.
Like,
Well, I grew up probably 6, 8 miles from the Calgary Stampede Ranch out in the Handhills. So,
right? Yeah.
we used to go over there as kids in high school, and Winston would give us $20 to get on Wildies. So we'd go over there and get on 3 or 4 and make a little bit of money. And it was always fun just to go over there, and you had kind of back in your backyard there just to
Oh,
go
for
get it. If
sure.
you wanted to go get on something, you just called somebody over there and they'd run something in and go get on.
Well, it's kind of cool because I talk about this a lot with people, especially the bucking horse guys. Like over the years, we've had so many great bucking horse riders come from Canada, and you can see it now in the saddle bronc riding and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's having that access to the world class animals that we have, and you basically grow up with these top horses as you move through your career, which kind of gives you a leg up over a lot of people who get their start, right?
Winston would let us get on, you know, you get on a nice one, but you got to get on a wildie first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You got to get on a colt first, but you got to practice on some good ones. I remember he had, I don't know what this big gray, it was Nerd or something that Calgary Stampede had, but it was just easy to ride, and you could, those easy horses that's where you learn how to set your feet, and you got a little bit of time to think about it. Not yanking the hell out of you. You know what they're going to do every time. So things like that really helped me just going over there and getting on too.
So was Winston a guy you kind of leaned on throughout your career, like aside from the Calgary stuff? Like, did you keep in touch with him outside of that kind of thing, or after you kind of moved away from home and started rodeoing? Like, would you call him up and look for advice, or was he a guy that would seek you out if he saw you somewhere, or what was your relationship like with Winston?
No, I would see Winston at all the rodeos or wherever he was at, and he was always, Winston was always such a nice guy, and he always called me David. Davey, he'll call me David. How you doing, David? And we'd have a little chat and whatever, and ask you how he's doing. He was just a great all around guy.
Yeah, it's amazing what he's done, and the legacy that he leaves on rodeo to this day. It's pretty amazing. So there's quite a bit of a gap between your first Stampede Championship and your second Stampede Championship. Was there ever a little bit of like doubt creeping in, being like, oh man, I don't know if I can get, and like when a guy wins a Stanley Cup or makes a Stanley Cup final, it's like, man, I never know when I'm gonna get back here. Did you ever have those thoughts, or did you just know it was a matter of time before you get back in the winner's circle there?
Well, you kind of felt like you're always closer. It always, it's luck of the draw, obviously. And
Mhm.
if you ain't got a good one, you ain't got a good one. So that's just the way rodeo works. But I think I made the finals like 6 times or whatever. So there was other times that I did make the final four but didn't win, right?
Mhm.
Is just the way it goes. It's
Mhm.
rodeo, right? You got
Yeah,
to
no
get
doubt.
on the good ones. You got to get on the good ones to get to the final.
Well, and it's like you have that you win in 96, and then you almost have a 10-year gap between your second win, then you win two more in a row after that. So it's like just
Right.
crazy how that works
Right.
out. Hey, like it just, yeah, like I said, luck of the draw, and
Yeah.
just kind of the level of guys riding it. It's
But
crazy.
I was lucky. I was real young when I won my first one, so I didn't look so old when I
Yeah,
started winning the other ones.
no
Right.
doubt. One, and even, and like we talked about, like that winning three in a row, like that's life changing for anybody. That's
Yeah.
a lot of money, and kind of like you said, sets up a guy for the rest of the season, right? Like and having that legacy too. I think it's pretty neat to have that record, I guess, under
Yeah.
your belt,
Well,
eh?
I'm still in misbelief they let me win it 3 times in a row.
It's like, I'm gonna let
That,
somebody win. Come on, man.
it's like, and then when it on first time on graded, and then the second time on coconut roll, the mother of graded
Yeah,
coconut.
yeah.
It's like I'm doing good with these coconut
The
horses.
coconut horses, yeah. So I want to get to the graded coconut ride, but before that, I want to go back to the practice pens at the ranch. Did you ever get on any of these horses like graded coconut or any of them when they were younger, or you
You
never
know
kind of
what? You
came?
never knew, right? You never
That's
knew.
true, I guess. Yeah.
They knew the names of them, right? You never were told the names of them, but they always had a book you could go back and look who got on them. But
Cool.
you know what? Back then, when you're 16 years old, it's just a horse. You just keep
That's
getting on
true.
it. But then,
Yeah, name doesn't matter, I guess, at that point.
didn't matter, right? Even, at Hand Hills Rodeo, I think me and Don McLeod got on a couple just at the rodeo. Winston give us $25 to get on. There needed to buck a few more horses. So, uh, just little things like that.
Sweet. Well, okay. So I pulled up your ride from Graded Coconuts. I want to pull it up here on the screen. And I did this with Logan Hay and his record breaking ride the other day, and I thought it was pretty cool. So I dug up the ride of you on Graded Coconut. This is from 2005. So it'd been your second Stampede Championship. I remember watching this as a kid. It was crazy. Like you were kind of at the height of your career. Graded Coconut was at the height of his career. Like this was kind of a heavyweight matchup. And I remember my dad was a bareback rider back in the day, and he was a big fan of yours, and him talking about this matchup and how stoked he was for it. But I want to know, kind of before I press play here, what's going through your mind when you know you got graded and you have a chance to win the Stampede for a second time?
Well, it was kind of started off before that. You go on stage and you pick. Back then, you got to pick your poker chip out of a
Right.
deal to see which ones you got. Now, I knew the horses in there, and then I'd seen graded for, I don't know, a few years, at least 2 years, or really known him, and he was bucking everybody off, or he was dirty, or he was rank. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my Lord, you don't want it that way, but you're thinking that. I remember plocking them out. I think that I was first, so all four chips were in there because I think I was 92 on Hurricane Terry in the 10 round there. So I
Right.
think first, so I got to pick first, and I picked him out, and I seen it was grated coconut, and I went, yeah, yeah. I'm like, well, I got my work cut out for me now, right? You
Yeah.
know, I've seen him like he bucked so hard out of the buck and shoot, and it was he just I seen him slam so many guys about the third or fourth jump over the front. So my whole goal was, get a good start on him. They roll him into the buck and shoots, and he comes in there, and I never really sat beside. Well, that's not true. Bill Boyd had him at Strathmore one time, and I helped him on, and I was thinking how short back this horse was, and
Mhm.
how round he was. He didn't have great withers, and I'm like, you're almost sitting on the flank because his back was so short.
Yeah.
So I remember me and my dad, we put my rigging on him. I'm like, I'm going to try to run this up as far as I can, just to, up on his withers as far as I can. And I remember pulling him down and sitting on him, and he just stood there like an old milk cow, right? And he just no life in him. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like he was just dog gentle. And I was thinking, all right. So I was waiting for my turn, and you know, got my hand in my rigging, and as soon as I start shuffling my butt around on him, he just kind of stands up and poops up like he's ready to go now. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
The beast is awake.
So all I was thinking was I need to spur the sucker out for 2 jumps because he's going to hit me in the back so hard, and I just need to get through these first 2 jumps and just have a good seat after these first 2 jumps. And that was my whole game plan, was just to get through those first 2 or 3 jumps,
Mhm.
because he hits you in the back so hard. And I was never a guy that really laid back real far. I kind of had the happy medium of
Mhm.
in the middle. So I kind of sat up and right out of there just because I knew the whack in the back was coming. So just kind of waited for that. And once he circled around there, I thought, okay, I got a seat now. So,
Yeah,
and
and
he,
you can see it here in the video. Like you get that shunk start, and he circles around,
yeah,
and
yeah, I was just trying to get it in. And it's too bad he quit me at the end here, but you know, it is what it is. But those first 3 whack in the backs is where he gets the guy.
yeah.
He hits you in the back so hard it wants to bring your feet down underneath you. So
Well,
right.
like it probably would knock the wind out of a lot of guys too. And how do you keep your composure during that, right? Like,
But that flank usually hits you in higher part of the back or in the middle of the back somewhere, and he was hitting you just above the belt line.
mhm.
So it's a different thing. I'm happy that it went that way. It was 95, but whatever. It was a height of the moment, but it was actually one of the best things in my career.
Oh, and it was, I think, and just the moment too, right? Like they obviously got the right, like the right person won, and it was a matchup between you, a heavy hitter, and between Grady Coconut, a heavy hitter, and it was just such a crazy moment, and must have been cool to celebrate, like having your dad there, and everybody kind
Yeah.
of like so close to home, having a moment like that.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? My wife's family was up from Oklahoma, so it was a big thing. So, it was fun. When I got off, it was like you kind of knew that I don't know if they can beat that,
Yeah, yeah. Who can beat that,
but
right?
it felt when you get off, sometimes it's like, man, I made a good ride, but sometimes it goes the other way.
So how would that win stack up in your 4 wins at Stampede? Is that, would you say that's kind of your favorite, or the one that sticks out the most, or is there another moment from those wins that kind of means more to you?
I don't know. They're all good, right? They're
Yeah,
all good. The other two or the two after that one were, I had Coconut Roll, and she's a hopper, and I've been on her probably 8 times. And
yeah.
actually at that time I didn't think she would be enough horse in that pen, but I was going to win some money, and it was going to be fun. So uh it, that one went fantastic. It was a lot easier. And then the last one was Alleyways, which I had Alleyways in my first one in 1996.
Oh wow.
I had Alleyways in the 10 round,
Mhm.
and that horse was a colt, like a younger horse then, and I got a fantastic picture, and that horse was one of the I've been on that horse, I don't know how many times, 10 times or whatever, but for a little horse, that horse would yank the crap out of you. But and then I was like, I was a director back then, and
Mhm.
I was picking the horses with Keith, and he's going through horses and doing whatever. And I said, well, let's throw alleyways in that final four.
Yeah.
I said, a little older now, but you still got to try your butt off to make a good ride on him. And he's going to be good every time. So, you know, having that horse on my last time is thinking, but I'd been on him lots. I knew how to ride him.
Yeah.
You know, he'd still buck you off, but he was still bucked hard. So the last one was actually a pretty good one for me in my way, because I got off and was a big scorer, and I was like, I can't believe they let me win again. Like, this is 3 times in a row, and I was
Yeah.
like, they let me win it again.
They'll probably stop inviting you back after that one. Yeah, let somebody else.
Yeah. But then everybody started joking. I was like, I just go to the Stampede once a year and I make a pretty good living.
That's funny. Yeah, I was talking with Barb Paulson before, and just, I think Tanner Gerlitz was one who told her about like how
He's the one that always said
yeah,
it.
yeah, he coined it. Yeah, yeah. What does Davey Shields Jr. do for a living? He wins Calgary, and that's
Yeah.
and then if you look from 2005 2007, it makes sense. That you did
Yeah.
win Calgary every year. It's pretty awesome, man. It's
Yeah, I
cool
had a
stuff.
good run at the Stampede.
Well, and we recently, like, Greg Coconut recently passed away, and we talk about your ride and that, but talk a bit about the impact that horse not only had on your career, but just like the bucking horse industry in Canada, the legacy of the Calgary Stampede, and how that just continues to live on for
Yeah.
generations.
So he was around most of my career, right? So he bucked a lot, and obviously we always seen him a limited time in Canada. You'd see him at Calgary, and you'd see
Mhm.
him at Innisfail or Pinoca or Strathmore or somewhere like that. But we got to see him lots in the U.S. at Ellensburg, or wherever they were in the U.S. And everybody, like all the bareback riders, they all went to the bucking shoots to go watch him, to see how good a trip he was going to have, and if he'd have a eliminator ranked trip or just a nice trip or whatever. But that horse was, he's a phenomenal little horse, and he's now, he's got all these colts or whatever coming
Mhm.
out. They're just as good, or that good. But he is just a fantastic horse, and he was always fun to watch. And just being the big pet in the back pen, that was pretty cool. Or you could go up and pet him or something like that.
Well,
I always
he had the look of a bucking horse, like the
Oh
long
yeah,
hair, long mane, tail,
yeah,
and just looked
but
like a
just a
bucking horse.
soft he had a soft eye on him too.
Yeah, yeah.
Real soft eye. So he was just a cool little horse.
So we kind of touched on your dad and kind of how you guys rodeoed together and how he kind of really had an impact on your career. But I just want to talk about kind of his legacy too. He gave a lot back to rodeo, whether hauling the bucking machines around, putting on schools.
Yeah.
He was shoot boss of Calgary for a long time. But yeah, just talk a bit about your dad and kind of what it meant to have him involved with your rodeo career and kind of what he gave back to rodeo as a whole.
I think us guys, that you see it nowadays too, that have parents that were at a high level
Mhm.
riding bucking horses or bulls or whatever, right? They all can teach you the little ins and outs of going down the road, getting on horses, maybe telling you what you're doing wrong a little bit. But you know, you see it now. Like, I watch it on TV a little bit. The Canadian bronc riders. Well, I knew all their dads, right? All
Yeah.
kind of rodeoed my time or whatever. But they were all good cowboys at one time, and now their kids are, exceptionally good. Like, I can't believe how many good Canadian bronc riders
Oh,
there is.
it's insane, man.
It's incredible. It's like, and most of those kids, their dad was a bronc rider or something, right? So
Hmm,
they
hmm.
all went down the road. So it's kind of neat to see that. And my dad helped me through my whole career. So rodeoing with him, we would ride the buck machine when I was little. We'd get on everything. When we were kids, we just run something in and just ride it. And then
Yeah.
saddle horse or whatever. We kind of played cowboy in the backyard all the time.
Was he the one who kind of passed along the patented Davey Shields Jr. toes turned out? Like there's still nobody to this day who can turn their toes out like you used to.
Well,
And
yeah,
they're
on when we used to ride the buck machine, I remember being like 8 years old, 10 years old, whatever. Just we had an old Quonset, and the bucket machine would be in the Quonset, and I would ride that thing and he's like, turn your toes out, turn your toes out, turn your toes out. So it was just like constantly. And then we had, when I was a steer rider, we had a buck and barrel, like
Mhm.
on 4 ropes hanging by
Yep.
4 phone poles. And he put a rubber mat around it and it was slippery as hell, but he'd make me ride it. But I had straight spurs and
So you'd have to turn them out.
I'd have to turn on my toes to hold on to that slippery or else I'd dump me off in the grass. So it's kind of where it started with the buck and barrel and the bucking machine and, eventually onto horses.
And was it always bareback horses for you? Was that what you were drawn to the most, or did you ever dabble in any of the other
No,
events?
I rode them all right in high school, right?
Yep.
Well, obviously after the steer riding, I wanted to be a bull rider.
Yeah.
So every
Naturally.
steer rider wants to be, right? So
Yeah.
I went CCA and they had the junior bulls there and I rode those for a little bit. And I don't know, I just kept getting piled off on my head. And I was like, well, maybe I'll try the novice stuff. And I
Yeah.
got to the novice bareback riding. I rode a little bit of broncs in high school, but could never figure it out. So, yeah, just at the start, I wanted to be a bull rider the whole time. But then I started winning money in the novices in the bareback riding. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm going to have to quit this.
Yeah. It could be a bit easier to win
I
some money
always
in
wanted to
bareback
be a
riding.
bull rider starting up. And what was funny is when I went to college, we were watching the bull riding and, college rodeos. So fun. I had best times college rodeo,
Mhm.
but I remember thinking the one rodeo that everybody fell off. And I said, well, I'm entering the bull riding. So I went to Odessa and got on a bull. And I mean, I did barely made the corner and right on the ground. I'm like, well, that's the end of my bull riding
That's not
career.
happening anymore. Gave it
So
a good college try.
yeah, yeah. They didn't recruit me to ride bulls there. I was supposed to be a bear. Yeah.
Well, so I mentioned on the top of the show, you have 3 Canadian championships under your belt as well, and you're no doubt going to go down as one of the all-time greats, like I mentioned before. But what are some of your favorite moments from those titles? There were some cool moments, I'm sure, and some rides. But what kind of stuff sticks out when you look back on your Pro Rodeo Canada career?
I don't know. I always loved the good Canadian rodeos. It was hard. Like once you traveled with Bill and those guys. Well, back when I went, you didn't have to go. As long as you made the finals, you made the finals. It depended on how many rodeos you went to.
Yep.
I think the one year that I think they made it a rule for me and Glenn O'Neill because I think we only went to 10 or 12 Canadian rodeos and made the Canadian finals. So, because it didn't matter if you went in 10th or first.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a showdown,
Sudden death or whatever, right?
sudden
Yeah.
death once you got there. So the way we looked at it, traveling with Bill was he always did good at the Canadian rodeos, but we'd always go back and forth, back and forth. And then, as long as we made the Canadian finals, it was like that's all we needed. We got to go back and make some money there. So head back. You're trying to make the NFR the whole time, right? But you want to make sure you got your everything set to go to the Canadian finals as well. But I miss going to like the Pinocas or the Strathmores or
Yeah.
I actually used to like all the Saskatchewan rodeos too because they're always so fun for some reason. But we had a good time out there, and Armstrong Rodeo. I really loved that one. The atmosphere was more like a U.S. rodeo at
Such a
night.
cool place, man.
Yeah, and it's warm. It's kind of felt like a U.S. rodeo, and that little run around there. Cloverdale was always good, and out in the island was fun. It's just different. Look, you go to the same rodeos all the time, but you always look forward to, I don't know, getting on that ferry and riding it across there.
So cool, yeah. They'll pick you up in a shuttle and get you beer if you want it,
Yeah,
and like a
yeah,
seafood buffet in the back.
yeah,
Like there's
yeah.
everything.
It was
Pretty cool
good.
stuff.
Always enjoyed those rodeos. Yeah, I always enjoyed like my hometown rodeos, the Hand Hills and
Yeah, yeah.
Anna, right?
Yeah,
Because
those are good ones too.
go talk to the old farmers around the Hand Hills, right? 'Cause I
Improve
grew
the
up,
people at home, you can actually do it.
right? Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay. I had something just pop into my head that I was meaning to ask you when we were talking about Graded Coconut, but you actually had a boat called Graded Coconut at one point.
Yeah.
Do you still have the boat?
Well, I don't right now. No, I sold everything when I moved down here, but
Oh, okay.
I had it was kind of funny because Cimarron Gurkey was living with me and I went and bought this boat and I'm like, we got to name this boat. And I'm going to name it Graded Coconut. So it was kind of funny. So I had a big, I took it to Deckel guy, Foster, one at Wetaskiwin there, and he's an old bareback rider too, and he had a graphic design business, and he made it good, and he made it red and gold, like the Calgary Stampede, red and gold, gray, and made it look like Calgary Stampede. So everybody, when I lived in Bashaw there, lived out there, and it sat in Buffalo Lake, so everybody knew that the old great. Yeah.
Well, so I have a funny story about that. So I'm dating a girl from Armstrong, and her dad's a boat mechanic in Sicamous, and he put a new engine in your boat back in the day when Rick Harry's. Yeah. So I dated his daughter. Yeah, it was funny. I told him that I was interviewing you, and he said, you make sure to bring up the boat. So
that was the boat.
Yeah, that's the boat. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So funny story is I had a friend in Bashaw winterize that boat, and he forgot 2 plugs it had 8 plugs instead of 6 plugs.
Oh,
no. And he forgot the 2 plugs way in the back, and it cracked the block. So I had to send it, which Daryl Tucker that used to run the.
That's my girlfriend's uncle. So they're good. Yeah, that's that connection there. Yeah.
He's my kid's what do they call it? Godparents.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Daryl, our kid's godparents.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So so he's obviously good friends with Rick, we took it out there, and Rick put a new motor in it and all that. There's a $10,000 screw up, $10,000.
Well, I guess you can thank Graded Coconut for that too, I guess.
Yeah.
Back to scheduled programming. The CFR's heading back to Edmonton, and it's the 50th year, and you've had obviously some success up in Edmonton. How exciting is it for it to head back to kind of where it all started for the 50th year?
I don't know. I never seen it in Red Deer. I never went to it or whatever. I've only known it in Rexall at the Northlands, right? So wherever it's headed, it's good to be in Edmonton. I believe it should always be up there. I don't know. Red Deer probably did good for them but I don't know, just the atmosphere of the CFR and in a big building or whatever. You can't beat it. The old, I used to go there with my dad when he used to make it, and I used to sit in the dressing room. As a little kid, I got pictures of me when I was like 5 years old in the dressing room. But the old memories of the old Northlands, I don't think you can beat it.
It's tough to beat. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's exciting time for it to kind of head home, for lack of a better term. Right. You kind of touched on some of the guys that you travel with over the years, but do you have any wild stories about any of them, or some that come to mind that are some fun ones we could talk about kind of through your career? Could be at any point.
Oh, we had lots of fun back then. The old Dodge truck with a Capri camper, and we used to go up those northern runs up there, Grand Prairie and Dawson Creek and all that. I think we had I don't know how many we had in that truck at one time. I think there were 6 of us, but
wow.
There's me and Bill Boyd and Kenton Randall and Cam Morris and Travis Whiteside. I don't know we're all in that camp. We'd had a few beers and whatever, and stopped by the river, and then everybody starts wrestling, and I'm watching these guys wrestle. And I'm not like, it's Kenton Randall and Travis Whiteside and Daryl Chillick wrestling, and these guys are big boys, right? Yeah. I'm just gonna sit here and have a beer and watch this wrestling match. But we had lots of fun going down the road. That's half the fun in it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Going down the road, and it's the eating and the entertainment that goes along afterward. It's always fun.
A guy you look back on a career or whatever, and you think back, those times with your buddies heading down the road sticks out a lot more than some of the rides or some of the places you go, and just the silly stuff a guy gets himself into or whatever. That's a big reason why a lot of people do it.
Oh, the joking, the joke that goes along in the truck or something. We had the one time where I took Dusty LaValle down one of his first years or second years down to the US in the winter run there. And I think Al Dasick was with us too. And we're driving down the road, and Dusty, he's looking at the little paper at the entry, like you get your entry book of what rodeos are coming up. Dusty hadn't really been out of northern Alberta too much. He says, and I'm driving, and he's sitting in the pasture, and Al's in the back, and he says, "Are we going to Tucson?" And I said, "No, we ain't going to Tucson. Never even heard of Tucson." Driving away, and all of a sudden he starts looking. He says, "Hey, they got a lot of money at this place." And I looked over at him, and Al Al Dasik comes, looks, and he says, "That's Tucson, not Tucson." I said, "Yeah, we're going to Tucson. Tucson's a good one."
Yeah, it's a big one, man, for sure. Oh,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
We had a lot of fun back in those days. You know, I kind of let Bill took me under his wing a little bit like that. And then when I had the chance of, traveling with younger guys too, like taking Dusty or whoever going down the road, it's always fun showing them the lights and seeing what they
Yeah.
see when, you first walk into like, San Antonio or Houston or something, and you see
Or
the big,
Tucson.
oh, yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, just seeing stuff like that, it's always fun seeing the good rodeos like that.
Well, and it kind of would like kind of keep you young too and motivated at that sense too, like kind of having those younger guys pushing you to be at your best, and obviously seeing them
Yeah,
have success is a fun part of it too.
right. It's like anybody, everybody's got to pay their dues. It seems like at the start to
Mhm.
get winning. There's the odd guy that just wins right off the bat, but for a lot of us, we had to kind of pay our dues
For
for the
sure.
first year or two before they kind of let us actually be big scores. But that's just the way it goes.
Kind of a couple more things before we wrap up here, Davey. I know you got some golf coming up here, but I wanted to ask about the state of bareback riding. I know you haven't really been keeping close tabs on rodeo, but it seems over the past 5 or so years that the amount of people actually taking up bareback riding and the kind of the quality's dipped off a little bit. What do you
Right.
think is a way we can kind of encourage more kids to take part of in it, or just kind of bring it back to where we can have a consistent flow of strong competitors coming through?
Yeah, it's tough nowadays. Like I watch it, it's a little bigger down here in the US because obviously there's way more people and the
Mm-hmm.
high school rodeo is big and whatever. So there's a lot more going on. But in Canada for the last 20 some years, it's been a battle to get bareback riders
Mm-hmm.
into it for one. But I think like when me and my dad did rodeo schools, when you advertise no colts or whatever, it's tough for a contractor because the contractor always wants to get their horses bucked somewhere, right?
Yep. Yep.
But if we're trying to build bareback riders, it's you want to get them on runners or just hop skipper or just bloopers that go out there to get them out of the belt, get them going and get their feet moving and see where they go. But it's tough nowadays. Is we put those schools on, and I mean, I'm not sure they're making kids tough enough anymore for what's going on.
That's
You
true
know,
too.
that's the other battle. It's I don't know, the kids are looking other places to do other things, but that's just my opinion.
It makes sense though. Like there's other events now, and there's only so many kids for so many events, and I think it can't all be put on rodeo. It has to be the kids want to do it too, right? You can't just
Right.
you can
And
take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink kind of thing, right?
they usually come from old bareback riders. Their
Mhm.
kids are they kind of get them into it like that. I was the other way. My kid wanted to play hockey and wanted to play baseball. I'm like, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
It's funny.
fine with
You either
it.
have it one way or another, right? Where it's like, hey,
You know, for the amount of schools we put on, and I'd watch the kids come out and just get slammed and on the ground, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. Watch my kid run beside a horse and get
oh,
slammed like that, but that's just the way it is. That's the way things work out.
it's like it's one of those things too. As a dad, like I don't know what it's like, but I can only imagine like my dad when I was competing, watching me, or if you watching your
Yeah,
kid play hockey, you don't have any control about what happens. Like you can sit there and tell them all you can think, but you're like it's probably like a crazy feeling to be like, man, I can't help this out at all.
exactly. You see, like we we've had kids come out of the city. Or we've had guys that are 45 years old trying to want to just try bareback riding or something like that. I remember we had Connor Hamilton come out, and I was like, "Where are you from?" "Oh, from downtown Calgary." And I'm like, "Oh." But the kid had so much try
Yeah.
into it. I'm like, this kid's gonna make it right here.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you see things like that, and you think that's cool. That's the
Yeah.
way it should be.
Well, I guess it's probably a good thing if we can even get, say, you have a school with 20 kids, you can get one or two, like, or three solid guys come out of it. Like, I think you're doing a good job. So I think we're seeing more and more. I think there's a good crop of like, especially out of Saskatchewan. Actually, they have a ton of good young horse riders coming out of Saskatchewan. So I think we can kind of see hopefully a rebound in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's been tough for a long time in the bareback riding, getting more bareback riders out there, but hopefully it'll come around and, keep going.
For sure. Well, Davey, I could sit here and ask you questions for days and shoot the shit, but I really appreciate taking the time to chat with me today, and I'll stay in touch, and we'll have to do it again sometime soon.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Right on. This is episode 9 of the short round. We will be right back right after this. All right. Once again, thank you so much to Davey Shields Jr. I hope you guys all enjoyed that as much as I did. It's cool to talk to a legend like that and hear some fun stories from back in the day. All right, Clay, we're kind of at the official start of the 2024 Pro Rodeo Canada season. I know we've had a few events with the Maple Leaf Circuit Finals and the Oyen Bull Riding kind of happened, which counted for 2024, but wasn't quite in 2024 yet. But now I think we can officially say the 2024 rodeo season is here, with Rimbey coming up this weekend. And you did some research and you got some background and kind of a little bit of a preview for what to expect as we head into Rimbey this weekend.
Yeah, so it's the Rimbey Pro Rodeo. It's put on by the West of the Fifth Rodeo Society, and it's hosted at the Rimbey Agrim Center there. So it's a little bit different. It's promoted as a charity event with a portion of their proceeds going to be directed to Stars for the second year in a row, now that they've held it in Rimbey. Dustin Duffy, part of the committee and part of the Duffy rodeo stock contracting crew there, says the best way for anybody to support the event is by attending and by buying some of the 50-50 tickets, because the proceeds from those will go towards that Stars that is so important for all of us rural people.
Any rural person who's kind of had any connection to Stars or been in a situation where Stars have been called, they're pretty impressive, and they're miracle workers, and they've helped a lot of people out over the years. So it's cool to see the Duffy family putting on an event like this and giving back to something that means a lot to a lot of rural folks.
For sure, and again, it'll be a great way for contestants to kick off their season. This year, it's starting a little earlier. They've had it in September and August the last 2 years, but we've moved it in to the beginning of the year just to kind of build that excitement and hopefully get a few more people out and just make it a good event to start the year. It's always nice to have that early one, and for those contestants that get a win out of it, it's kind of a nice little notch on the belt there. So
yeah, and it's an exciting time, like you say. I think we're because spring fever starting to set in. People are tired of being cooped up in the cold and looking to get out and start doing some stuff. So it's good timing for it to happen. And kind of like you mentioned, it's a good way for contestants to start their season off. And I know looking through the draw here, there's not a whole lot of household names, but there is quite a few like well-known guys going. But it's kind of an opportunity for maybe some of the rookies or younger contestants to kind of get a leg up with the competition and get in the mix to make CFR 50 up in Edmonton.
for sure, this is definitely one of those younger guys that's trying to get their card filled might be able to jump out there and get a head start, or some of those guys maybe returning from a season that didn't quite go as well. I mean, no time like the present to just get on a roll from the get-go. So
yeah, and you kind of went through the draw and picked out some of your key matchups we want to watch heading into Rimbey this weekend. I know we got some younger guys, some guys coming back, and some familiar household names that'll be popping up through the draw this weekend.
yeah, so looking at the draw, Jacob Stemo's got Blue Bananas, Blue Roan Mara Duffy's that they split Williams Lake on last year. He also won Medicine Lodge at the end of the year there, and I asked Dustin which ones that we might not be aware of that we should be watching for, and he mentioned the horse Misdemeanor, which I guess it'd be a felony not to watch out for that. So,
well, I want to jump back to Jake Stemo real quick. He's a guy who's taken a few years off from competing. He's been busy working, doing his own thing, but when he's going and healthy and having kind of at the top of his game, like Jake's one of the best we got up here in Canada, and he's always a threat to kind of compete for that top 12 spot at the CFR.
yeah, he really rides well, and I mean he's such a good guy. You really you hope for him and you pull for him when he's out there. I mean he's just comes from a tremendous rodeo family and just one of the good guys that you definitely hope for the best for. So it should be a good matchup.
Let's jump into the saddle mark riding. I know you got a matchup kind of set up here with another well-known Duffy horse that has taken a lot of cowboys to the pay window.
Yeah, so I think Chance Barris there on Boudelier, the old stud there, he's been to the CFR many times here now, and they've won a lot of money. He's not just a walk in the park though. You got to have
Mhm.
things together. I can attest to that myself. When he was younger and I was younger, we matched up in Buck Lake, and although the start of the ride might have got me on the Buck Lake poster, the end of the ride didn't pan out for me, and so yeah, no, I think that'll be a matchup to watch there in the bronc riding.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't Dawson Dom win last year's Rimbey West of the Fifth on Boudelier? I think
There's a
they're placed
very
pretty
yeah,
high. I can't remember the actual results, but I know there's a picture out there of Dawson on him. So
for sure.
someone could fact check me on that if they want to.
Yeah,
And like I said too, there's some other household names and a lot of folks that are well known in our rodeo community kind of competing this weekend as we move through. We got Ty Tapetat, the Bareback Riding, Cassie boys are back. The Blanco boys are back. Tyler Propescal, Jesse Propescal. It's gonna be a great weekend of action over there in Rimbey to kind of get the 2024 season kicked off.
for sure. Yeah, I know I actually run into Curtis there and saw Cody yesterday at the funeral there, and yeah, Curtis didn't pop down there for the end of Houston and everything, but yeah, I know he said he's healing up. He's basically able to do everything again with his hand that kept him
Mhm.
out of the end of the season, and I'm sure that all of those competitors there, they've got enough years of experience all piled together there that we'll definitely see their names in the pay window.
Well, and Curtis is probably super hungry to get back to the CFR after missing it last year. You know, he's one of the longest tenured competitors at the over the last however many years making the CFR. So missing last year's might have kind of put some salt on the wound for him and made some extra motivation grew up for him in this 2024 season.
Oh, for sure. You know, he makes quite a good living either competing or training and bringing along the top of the line horses that he's always been known to train. So he'll be happy to get 2024 off on the right foot and get her going.
So one other thing I wanted to know on Rimbey, which I find kind of cool, is we got 20 junior steer riders in the in the draw, which I think is got to be one of the strongest fields or strongest contingents of junior striders we've had in a long time. So it's nice to see a nice injection of youth into the rodeo too so early in the season.
For sure. And Dustin said it was a new event for the year, and it's great to see that many entries for it. And I do believe they're even going to have kind of a kickoff open steer ride and jackpot before the rodeo as well. So I think that Rimbey facility just does a great job with their rough
Mm.
stock practices and everything, and rough stock jackpots all winter long. I mean, they run a lot of really good events out of there. So it seems like a natural transition for all of those kids that have been practicing all winter to crack out and enter at the rodeo in the spring, and yeah, we definitely need them and need to promote them and nurture those kids into a career somewhere in rodeo. They didn't. I
Hmm.
know a lot of the kids I rode steers with. Well, they transitioned into various roles in the rodeo world, but that's where so many people get their start.
Yeah, no, it's so great to have these youth events available to our up and coming contestants and kind of a pathway to whichever open event they want to compete in or wherever they end up kind of involved with rodeo. So it's we're thankful for these events being accessible to the young cowboys and cowgirls of the world. But yeah, Clay, I think that's about gonna wrap it up for episode number 9. I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me and we'll definitely be doing it again here soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for episode 9 of the Short Round podcast. Thanks once again to Clay Creasy for joining me and taking the time to be my co host. And if you want to stay up to date with what's happening in Pro Rodeo Canada, obviously head to our website, rodeocanada.com, or tune into our social media channels where we'll be updating you all with news you can use as we move through the 2024 season and beyond. And thank you once again for listening. And we'll see you all very soon for episode 10 of the Short Round.